Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really captivating Indonesian folktale straight out of West Manggarai. It's a story that reveals how deep, unimaginable grief and supernatural myths literally shape the maps we use today. Seriously, local geography is often just a physical record of the stories a community flat out refuses to forget.
Before we jump in, though, I want you to think about something. What forgotten tragedies or myths might have actually named the landmarks right in your own town? Keep that in the back of your mind, because this story shows us exactly how the mysterious origins of a local bridge are completely tied to an ancestral tragedy. You know, every time we cross a bridge or walk down a named road, we're pretty much traveling over someone else's history.
All right, Section 1, The Child of Suramisi, a peaceful village in West Manggarai.
So our story kicks off with a hard-working married couple living in this village. They had this beautiful, absolutely adorable baby girl named Empo. She was at that really precious but totally dependent stage of life, you know, the one she couldn't walk quite yet, so she spent her days just happily crawling around, always keeping super close to her parents while they went about their day. It's a scene pretty much anyone can relate to. Without modern childcare, the parents just did what families have done for literally centuries. They brought their baby to work. They headed out to their garden to clear some weeds and tend the crops. And to keep little Empo safe and comfortable, they set up this cozy little spot for her to sleep inside a small hut right there in the garden. It was honestly a perfect, tranquil morning. The weather was nice and cool, a gentle breeze was softly blowing, and it just lulled Empo right to sleep while her parents worked nearby. Moving on to Section 2, The Lure of the Darat, a shrinking window of safety.
Now, that false sense of security entirely shatters right as the sun climbs a bit higher. The morning starts totally fine, with the parents engrossed in their work, assuming the baby is fast asleep. But right around 11 a.m., everything changes. Empo wakes up. She looks around the little hut and realizes she's completely alone. Her parents are just out of her line of sight. So by midday, totally unaware of any danger, she just does what babies do. She starts crawling blindly away, getting further and further from her safe little sleeping spot.
But here's the thing. In the rich folklore of Surimese village, this wasn't just a simple case of a toddler wandering off. According to the elders, she was lured. And this brings us to a huge part of their local belief system, the darat. So what is a darat? Well, it's a supernatural spirit that's believed to live right there on the land, and is notorious for being mischievous, even malicious, and misleading people, especially the vulnerable.
The villagers firmly believe that at that exact moment, the darat appeared. Under the spell of this land spirit, little Empo was guided directly away from safety. This helpless, adorable baby crawled straight toward a terrifyingly steep and incredibly deep cliff right near the hut. With no one watching and totally unaware of the sheer drop right in front of her, she fell into the ravine.
Which brings us to Section 3, a tragic discovery, the frantic village-wide search.
Just a short time later, Empo's mother stepped away from her work to check on her daughter, but instead of a peacefully sleeping baby, she found an empty space. The shock was immediate. She just started screaming her daughter's name, Empo, and her voice echoed through the garden in absolute panic.
Her father heard these terrifying cries, immediately dropped his tools and came sprinting over. And this one desperate question just hung in the air. Where did little Empo go? And it wasn't just the parents asking it either. The entire community of Surimse village heard the commotion, and they literally dropped everything to join together in this massive search. The villagers frantically mobilized. They systematically walked along all the local footpaths, they searched thoroughly through the dense bushes, and scoured literally every inch of the surrounding garden. They were looking in every possible direction until they made a really chilling, devastating discovery. Tiny crawling marks in the dirt, and those marks pointed directly toward the edge of the steep cliff. The villagers slowly approached the edge and looked down. And tragically, their worst fears were confirmed. Empo had fallen to the very bottom of the ravine. You could imagine the heavy, unimaginable sadness that just spread like wildfire throughout the entire village as the parents realized their beloved little girl was gone forever.
Now for Section 4, naming Kungadur Bridge, a cliff remembered by all.
So looking at this literal geography of grief, the community made a decision to immortalize her memory. They obviously couldn't bring Empo back, but they could absolutely make sure no one ever forgot her. Back in the day, they named that very steep cliff Kungadur, just to commemorate the tragedy. and that name was faithfully passed down from generation to generation. Fast forward to the present day, years later, when modern infrastructure was developed and a bridge was built over that exact spot, the name stuck. It officially became known as Kungadur Bridge.
This leads into Section 5, Offerings and Ancestral Heritage, ensuring safe passage. Because of what happened, the people there held some really strong beliefs about traveling through this specific area. When navigating the super treacherous cliff path toward the neighboring Pairing village, locals believed that a mysterious bird, or sometimes a supernatural figure, would just sort of manifest. But unlike that malicious Darat that lured Empo, this figure actually appeared to guide travelers safely along the dangerous route. But here's the catch. This spiritual guidance wasn't free. It required deep respect for their ancestral beliefs.
Right, so to guarantee they got this protection, travelers strictly followed an ancestral practice that was handed down directly from their forefathers. When getting ready to travel the cliff path toward Pairing village, they'd intentionally carry eggs with them. It was a physical offering. And they didn't just do this on the way out either. They had to perform the exact same practice on the way back as a sign of continuous respect.
It really just boils down to one essential goal: to guarantee a safe trip and provide absolute protection until travelers reach their destination. By making this offering, they were actively safeguarding themselves against the very supernatural forces and, the treacherous landscapes that had tragically claimed the life of little Empo.
So you see, this story isn't just some spooky myth or a random historical anecdote. It serves as a totally vital cultural tool used by the people of Syriameze to teach core community values. The themes are incredibly powerful. You've got parental love, a timeless reminder of that unbreakable bond between a parent and child and the profound grief that comes with a loss like that. Then there's child protection, vividly underscoring how absolutely crucial constant vigilance is to keep the vulnerable safe. And finally, cultural heritage. It really emphasizes the power of preserving local history and ancestral beliefs, making sure the past continues to inform the present.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought. What local legends and hidden histories are just waiting to be discovered right in your own neighborhood? Seriously, the next time you cross a local bridge, drive down a uniquely named street, or even hike a specific trail, ask yourself what hidden history, what ancient grief, or maybe even what protective ritual might be built directly into its very foundation. Stories like Empo are quite literally everywhere, just waiting for us to uncover them. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep asking those questions.